The first Justice of 2019. Happy New Year. I'm Judge Jeanine Pirro. Thanks for being with us tonight. And a special thanks to all of you for once again making justice #1 last weekend. You know, we've got a big show on deck with Counselor to the President Kellyanne Conway standing by live, plus Corey Lewandowski, Dan Bongino, Candace Owens, and more. But first, my open. This week, newly elected Congresswoman Rashida Tlaib, just hours after the honor of being sworn into the United States Congress, had this to say.
When your son looks at you and says, "Mama, look, you won," bullies don't win. And I said, "Baby, they don't, because we're going to go in there, we're going to impeach them."
Rashida, so our country allows your family to come here, start a new life in America with all its advantages, protections, and privileges, unlike anything they experienced in Palestine. And your first act after being allowed the privilege of running for U.S. Congress and then winning a seat in that hallowed chamber, the People's House, is to curse out the President of the United States, promising his impeachment with absolutely no facts to support the charge, violating the very Constitution you just swore to uphold. And by the way, show me where in the Constitution, Rashida, it says you can impeach a president because you hate him. The greatest nation on earth, through its largesse, opens its doors and lays out the welcome mat for your mother and father, who I'm sure thanked God when they got here. And you get to the national stage and call the commander-in-chief a mother effer in a public forum demanding impeachment? Who are you? Well, for one, we know you're a Democrat and a socialist. And as Winston Churchill said, socialism is a philosophy of failure, the creed of ignorance, and the gospel of envy. And although Palestinians from your homeland may be waving flags for you, you're an American in the U.S. Congress representing Americans, madam, not Palestinians. Your dance should be one with and under the American flag. And you have promised to vote against all U.S. military aid to America's sole partner in the Middle East, Israel, because they discriminate against Palestinians. Discriminate? You don't like Israel. Okay, I have an idea. When the Palestinians and the PLO support the United States, like Israel does, then we won't need to send them money. And in case you didn't know, Hamas is a designated terrorist organization that was birthed in Palestine. Are you really against racism or just Israel? Like your friend Linda Sarsour, do you just want Israel eliminated from the river to the sea? A primer. Do what you were elected to do. Stand up for your country and your constituents. Americans, I repeat, Americans want a strong economy so they can get a job, put food on the table, pay their rent or mortgage. They want safety and security for their families. They want the law to be applied equally, applied the same with no one above it and no one below it. Your constituents want legislators who will work and not waste time or taxpayer dollars, and instead work toward those goals instead of engaging in personal vendettas against the president. But the hypocrisy is not just yours. It's your party's new MO. They talked a good game, civility, working together, working for the American people, not focusing on hate. And no surprise, their first order of business on their inaugural day as the majority party in the House was about hating President Trump. Democrat Congressman Brad Sherman of California wasted no time introducing articles of impeachment against President Trump, right when we got the best jobs report this country has seen in nearly a decade. Does that make sense to you, Rashida? And your fellow Democrat, Steve Cohen of Tennessee, has already introduced a constitutional amendment to get rid of the Electoral College. Yet another blatant attempt to violate and upend the Constitution. The Democrats' hatred of the president is astonishing. Their hypocrisy is astonishing. You Democrats just hate the president. Congressman Hank Johnson compared Trump to Hitler this week. You call him an MFer because you don't like the way he talks. But you don't have the guts to follow through with your claim. When you're confronted by the press, you whimper away and run from the American media. Did Nancy rein you in, Rashida? The president is improving the economy, making us safer, and yes, building a wall. And you want to impeach him. Is this what we can look forward to for the next 2 years? The old impeach 45? You want Donald Trump out of office? Be careful what you wish for. He's not the only one who can be voted out in 2020. And that's my open. If you like my opening statements, you'll love my new book, New York Times #1 bestseller, Liars, Leakers, Liberals, The Case Against the Anti-Trump Conspiracy. And joining me now by phone with reaction to my opening statement and all the developing news this week, Counselor to the President, Kellyanne Conway. Good evening, Kellyanne.
Good evening. Thanks for having me, Judge.
All right. Happy New Year to you. You know, I must tell you that it was rather shocking to me when, the Democrats talked about, when they got in power, at least here they are winning the House, that it would be all about civility. And when they go low, we go high. Well, they weren't even 24 hours in. They're upending the Constitution. They want to impeach him for no legitimate reason. And he's an MFer. What say you?
Well, and contrast that to what the president was doing yesterday, Jeanine. He held forth in the Situation Room with the Democratic and Republican leaders from the House and the Senate. All 8 of them were there. And he's trying to negotiate border security for this country. You had the Secretary of Homeland Security, Kirstjen Nielsen, there with her facts and figures. We're having a humanitarian crisis at the border now. These children are making this dangerous journey. Mm-hmm. The president said, please don't take your children on this perilous trek because the children can get sick or worse. They're not coming through the 26 ports of entry. They're coming through, trying to come through other ways. We've had this increase from single males coming from Mexico, which was the vast majority of illegal aliens trying to come to the country. And now it's family units and unaccompanied children from the Northern Triangle countries. It's really changed. But the president has made very clear, we've got to stop the human smugglers, the drugs that are pouring this country over the southern border.
What do you think is
and he also said we want these people to be here. He wants people to come here legally to work or to live as they want to. I'm here in Camp David right now, and I'm sitting at a dinner table. Just got up. I'm sitting at a dinner table with Acting Chief of Staff Mick Mulvaney and Jared Kushner, 2 of the people who were there negotiating today with the Democrats at the White House.
What did it go like?
They were there, of course, with the Vice President and Secretary Nielsen.
And
the Vice President is leading these negotiations, and it proves, that tells you how serious the president is. He said, we need border security. We're a sovereign nation that needs border security. $5 billion that the House passed. That's a modest investment in keeping us all safe. Get those drugs the hell out of this country. They're killing people every day. We have an increase in meth and heroin, cocaine, and fentanyl coming over the southern border. And I don't want it in my kids' backyard. And I know other moms all across this country agree with that.
Okay. Was Nancy Pelosi disrespectful to Kirstjen Nielsen, the Secretary of Homeland Security? And what are any discussions, and are they succeeding on the shutdown?
Look, in the Situation Room yesterday, I can tell you the president had the upper hand. I mean, they sat there for almost 2 hours discussing border security. If we're talking about whether to call it a wall or something else, call it something else. But secure the border. In some places, it'll be a wall. In some places, it may be steel slats. It may be electronic and technology. It may be exactly what Customs and Border Patrol says they need. The president has made very clear on Twitter and in his public statements and in the Rose Garden yesterday, in the cabinet meeting for 95 minutes on live TV 2 days earlier. He's made clear border security as a mechanism may mean many different things, including a wall. But let's get it done.
Okay.
So many presidents have talked about securing the border. Chuck Schumer himself is on tape saying,
of course,
illegal immigration is bad. We have to get border security. But they voted for the Secure Fences Act in 2006. Jeanine, you know what? Let them call it the Secure Fences Act of 2019 if that'll make them feel better. But let's get it done. You asked about Secretary Nielsen. She and Customs, Border Patrol, and DHS have put together a fantastic presentation showing the increase in the drugs coming over the border in just the last year, the increase in the unaccompanied children who are here taking this perilous trek, and the number of family units who are showing up from the Northern Triangle countries. She and Secretary Pompeo negotiated this terrific deal with Mexico so that those who are coming up here can get asylum in Mexico and just wait there while their claims of fear are being processed by the United States. Mexico has offered work visas. They offer them safety. They've offered them, obviously, food and safe passage. And yet they're saying, no, we need to get to America. This president is saying, come legally. We have a humanitarian crisis at the border. If these people really cared about the kids, they would work with the president, the vice president, and our team. And if you care about those kids, you want to deter them from taking this perilous journey. And we need border security. We need physical barriers that you can't climb over, crawl under, drive through, or walk around.
Okay, and I want to just, in closing, Kellyanne, John Kelly, when he was leaving, said they ain't going to be a wall. And then around the same time, the president tweeted an image of not a wall, but of a fence. Is this change in the semantics? And as you can see, there's a fence there with slats. Is that due to the Democrats demanding no wall, but instead a fence?
No, the president is listening to the Customs and Border Patrol, and he knows what is necessary. This man is a builder. He knows what's strong and robust and a deterrent. Now, what you're showing now on the screen, it's very important. The president said design a steel slat barrier. What you see here would be very effective in deterring folks from taking that journey to begin with. If they saw that this is what they're going to face, they're going to say, well, hold on. I can't drive through that or crawl over it or under it or around it. That's a serious thing. And so you need a physical barrier. In some places, it may be a wall, it may be the steel slats, it may be electronics. We're going by what the brave men and women who are exhausted and overtaxed and overworked right now, trying to absorb this new influx of family units and unaccompanied minors.
I think it's very interesting,
Kellyanne. From Customs and Border Patrol, they're running toward them.
Oh, right.
CBP tells me they're running toward them, saying, "Help me! Where do I go? What do I do?" And so those steel slats that you saw. Steel's more expensive than concrete, let's face it. But let's get that $5.6 billion package. It's a modest investment in our border security. The House passed it. Chuck Schumer has to find the 10 votes. He has to find the 10 votes to get this done and put it on the president's desk. Let's get the border security, reopen the government. And negotiations will continue tomorrow.
Thank you, Kellyanne Conway. And Dan Bongino and Chris Hahn are warming up for their first panel battle of the year. But first, how important is the border wall to President Trump's reelection hopes? I'm joined live by former Trump campaign manager Corey Lewandowski to discuss.
The southern border is a dangerous, horrible disaster. We've done a great job, but you can't really do the kind of job we have to do unless you have a major, powerful barrier.
President Trump not backing down from the fight to secure our southern border as the standoff with the Dems continues. Joining me now with his take on all of it, former Trump campaign manager, co-author of the new book, Trump's Enemies, Corey Lewandowski. All right, Corey, good evening and Happy New Year. What I started my open with, and I want to get to the wall in a second, is that Rashida Tlaib saying she's going to impeach the president, profanity-laced. How is it possible for Democrats to even vote with the Republicans and even come up with a common plan when there is so much hate going on within 24 hours of their taking over?
Well, Judge, happy Saturday. As you know, this is the first week of the new Congress, and what we've seen is exactly what the Democrats didn't talk about during the campaign. Their only objective, their only agenda is to impeach the President of the United States. And we saw that on the very first day of this Congress. We've seen that they've now filed a bill to make it mandatory that candidates for president file their taxes and make those public. We see that they want to impeach the president. We see the language that they're using, the vitriol that they have against this president because they hate this president more than they love their country. And it's a shameful, shameful thing that that's the position that we're in right now with elected officials.
Well, you know, I can't imagine if a Republican said that about President Obama, what the reaction would be by the media as well as the Democrats.
Well, Judge, what the reaction would be is they'd be immediately calling for that person to resign. They'd be saying that the person's a racist, right, and every other name in the book. But look, the mainstream media hasn't covered this story at all because it doesn't fit their narrative. Yeah. And the narrative should be that this person clearly is either unfit for office or clearly doesn't represent the people that they should back in their home state of Michigan. Because if that's the way you came to Washington, which is starting off by telling your son that you're going to impeach the XXMFer because of it, that's not what you were elected to do. That's not what you campaigned on. And it's another individual who says one thing back in the district and something different in Washington.
You know, I just had counsel to the president, Kellyanne Conway, on, and she talked about the necessity to get 10 votes from Senator Chuck Schumer in order to get the wall for the president. How does the president go about getting 10 votes from Senator Schumer? How does that happen?
Look, Judge, it's not going to happen. Let's not kid ourselves. The Democrats are never going to give this president the win that he deserves on border security. They have no interest in protecting our country from illegal aliens who come across the border and kill police officers. Or now today we see in Knoxville, Tennessee, the son of the fire chief there killed by an illegal immigrant just in the last 48 hours. Another horrific story. The Democrats are never going to do it. The thing the president needs to do is he needs to use every tool available to him as the commander-in-chief of our armed services to go and enforce our laws by putting the military on our southern border, by having them build the wall if they need to, and have some federal judge come in and try and stop him from doing that. And we'll litigate this to the Supreme Court. But if we think our only path forward is getting Chuck Schumer to get us 10 votes, then we have a very, very hard 2 years in front of us.
I actually agree with you. But so let's say that the president uses the military. Where does he get the funds from to pay for the wall?
Well, look, we know that there's money already that has been appropriated for wall funding, but more importantly, in the military budget.
Well, that's like $1.6 billion. It's nothing. It's a drop in the bucket because of Paul Ryan and Mitch McConnell on the omnibus bill of 2018, I'm sorry.
Well, look, we need $25 billion, right, Judge, and let me just throw this out there. Nancy Pelosi wants to give $20 billion to foreign aid to countries around the world. How about we start taking care of ourselves? This president ran on a platform of America first. America first means protecting our borders and our people above all else. That's not to say we're isolationists. That's not to say we're not going to help other countries. But if we can't help ourselves first, what gives us the privilege of helping others and protecting those countries before we protect our own citizens?
Well, and the sad commentary today is that the officer who was killed by an illegal his funeral was today. And we hear about these cases and so many that we don't hear about. I hear from my law enforcement friends, another illegal, drunk driving, killed another individual. And as we go forward, it just stuns me that the Democrats are digging their heels in when they have said the exact opposite several years back. But I think it's interesting when the president tweeted the picture of a fence, not so much a wall. And Kellyanne took great pains to kind of just say, oh, it doesn't matter if it's a wall or a fence or whatever. I get the sense that they're trying to change the semantics or the lingo so that maybe they can get something passed. And you can see what the president tweeted out, not so much a wall, but more a barrier or a fence.
Well, what I do know is that the president has listened to the Customs and Border agents who are on the border every day of the needs that they have. We saw the press conference this week where they spoke about the need for that barrier, for a wall, for something that they can see through so they can see the threat coming from the other side. And they should have every tool necessary, every resource available to them so that they can be protected while they protect us at night while we sleep. And if that means it's a see-through steel slat barrier, and if that's what they want, then that's what they should get. We should leave the decision of what is put on the southern border to the professionals who guard us every night and put their lives on the line for us.
All right. Corey Lewandowski, thanks so much for being with us tonight.
Thank you, Judge.
All right. And Candace Owens still on deck. Plus, I'll take you to our nation's capital. Exclusive tour of the brand new Law Enforcement Museum. But next, Dan Bongino and Chris Hahn ready to rumble in 2019 with a bare-knuckled panel debate. What will they have to say about the president's economy? You better make sure you watch this one. The panel is next.
Live from America's News headquarters, I'm Alicia Acuna. Thousands of protesters took to the streets of Paris and elsewhere around France today, their first demonstration of the new year. French security forces fired tear gas and rubber bullets at demonstrators who set fire to cars and motorcycles. The French government spokesman's office building was also attacked. It was the first attack on government property since the Yellow Vest movement began in mid-November. Two Republicans on Capitol Hill making a case for term limits in Congress. Texas Senator Ted Cruz and Florida Congressman Francis Rooney are proposing a constitutional amendment to limit House representatives to a maximum of 3 two-year terms and senators to 2 6-year terms. President Trump has spoken out in favor of term limits. I'm Alicia Acuna. Now back to Justice with Judge Jeanine.
So 312,000 jobs was a tremendous number, and obviously having a big impact on the stock market today. And I do want people to remember that we've had a tremendous success, despite the fact that I'm in the midst of negotiating incredible trade deals for our country.
It's a new year and time for some new battles with our justice panel. Joining me tonight, host of the Dan Bongino Show podcast, Dan Bongino, along with former senior aide to Chuck Schumer, syndicated radio show host Chris Hahn. Gentlemen, welcome back and Happy New Year. Chris, I'm going to start with you.
Happy New Year, Judge.
I'm going to start with you, Chris. Now, you know, the Democrats are bemoaning the fact that they non-essential federal employees, and I looked it up, it seems in some parks departments in certain states, agriculture, interior, non-essential jobs are not getting paid, but they, of course, will be paid the back pay when the shutdown is over. And again, it's only a partial shutdown. But, you know, the president stays in Washington, doesn't take a vacation, and your old employer, Chuck Schumer's on vacation, Nancy Pelosi's in Hawaii. They're bemoaning the federal employees, the non-essential ones, not getting a paycheck, and yet they don't stay in Washington to work it out. They go on vacation. How do they justify that?
They got phones, they got internet. I mean, you're looking at me. I'm in a different city from you right now. There are ways to communicate. And if the president had a deal to reopen the government, he would have brought them back to Washington to reopen the government. I would like to see this economy continue. But the one thing that's going to trip it up is a prolonged government shutdown, especially as we head into tax return season, when people need to file their returns and then spend that money that helps our economy. The president needs to open the government right now, do whatever it takes. I heard Kellyanne a little while ago backing off of physical structure, talking about technology. That's something we can work with, because I think the Democrats believe in border security. They just don't believe in that physical structure. And if technology for border security is an option, that's a winner. Let's hope that happens.
You know, Dan, isn't it interesting that the president stays in Washington, doesn't go to Mar-a-Lago, doesn't go anywhere, and the Democrats are like just out of town for a week, for 2 weeks? What does that tell you?
Yeah, Judge, there's nothing like the optics of Nancy Pelosi in a $10,000 a night villa while simultaneously claiming to champion the little guy in government not getting his check for 2 weeks. Kind of embarrassing. No, Chris won't tell you that, though. But Chris said something so outrageous there, I have to confront him on. I love this new line by the Democrats that, you know, we don't need a barrier, we need technology. I was in the security arena for a long time. I'm not patting myself on the back. It's just a fact. We use walls in security. You know why? They stop people from moving and they allow us to control access. Chris doesn't know anything about security, so he won't tell you that. But I ask a simple question of every Democrat that says this. I say, if walls don't work, why do we use them at the White House? Why are they all around Capitol Hill and obstructive barriers? Why do we use them in banks surrounding vaults? Why? Dan, and they can't answer basic, simple questions because they don't know.
I'll answer if you let me. Dan, in a confined area, a wall is a perfect obstacle to block things in, especially if you're monitoring it. But if you've got thousands of miles of wall and you don't have people stationed every couple hundred feet to monitor it, they don't work. There's never been a ladder and a rope that hasn't beaten a wall when it was unmanned. So we need technology, not a wall. Walls are old technology. It didn't work. Genghis Khan got over the Great Wall of China. Anybody who wants to come into this country is going to get over the Great Wall of Trump.
Listen, Chris, the inclined plane is old technology, too. We still use it because this old technology line is so dumb. I can't believe people say this on television. Fire is old technology, too. We use that. Electricity wasn't invented yesterday. Chris, listen to me. It is a passive security measure. You weren't in security. I get it. You don't understand this stuff, but you talk about it anyway. When you're involved in access control, we are not looking for a perfect solution. You are correct. Point stipulated. A wall is not going to stop every single person. What it does is it creates an obstruction and makes it more difficult. It's not the answer to every problem. It is a passive security measure to control access.
And Dan,
that's what
I
a wall
am sure that you would rather have technology that you could deploy people to meet people trying to cross the border rather than a wall which is going to be
hold on, time out.
Or climbed over or dug under, and it's not even solving a real problem.
Okay, Dan.
Here we go with the latter problem.
Dan, go ahead.
Okay,
Dan.
Chris. Wait, I think Chris, please explain to me how a wall. What is a drone gonna do that a wall doesn't? Go.
It's going to see what's going on over hundreds of miles and allow you to deploy
so we can see
border
people
patrol where
the
they're needed.
Good
you
job.
can actually, with a drone,
What are they
you can see
sitting in
people
one
coming
spot
for
waiting
miles.
to take off? What are they on their horses or mounted border patrol? They're like, over here, over there.
Exactly. Judge, he just said we didn't have enough people to watch the border. Now he thinks we have enough people to watch the
drones. Chris, they don't have the people to do that. That's why you need the wall. Okay,
Judge,
Chris.
He just beat his own argument. Wait, Tom, he just said we don't have enough people to watch the wall, but now he wants to watch a videotape of a drone. He debated himself in one. That was nice.
You guys, look, thousands of miles of wall make no sense. Kellyanne Conway's backing off of it. That's a good thing. We'll get a deal next week if that's really
Let me ask you a
question.
When Kellyanne Conway said that the president has to get Chuck Schumer to get 10 senators to agree, what is Chuck Schumer going to ask for that? What does he get for that?
Well, what do
you want?
When I heard, I think you want to have DACA for some border security money, which is not necessarily a wall. But when I heard she said he needs 10 votes, that means he's already lost 3 Republican votes. They have 53 votes right now. Right. So he's lost 3 votes already.
How do we get
That's
what
not
do you
a good
guys,
place to
what
be.
do you guys want in the horse trading, Chris? What do you want? You want DACA?
Look, I think what they want is something like they had in 2013. I think DACA would be good. I think what they had in 2013, the comprehensive plan that the Gang of Eight put forth that passed the Senate with bipartisan votes would be a great place to start. That gave $25 billion for border security.
Dan,
so if they want that $25 billion, go back to that deal.
Dan, didn't the president offer 1.8 million DACA recipients a path to citizenship not that long ago? Dan?
Yeah, he did. He did. And the Democrats, of course, at the last minute folded because the Democrats will not. I was listening to Corey, your last guest. The Democrats will not give the president a victory on any issue. Judge, I got to be honest with you. I don't even think the president needs to horse trade at this point. The Democrats are in a pickle. We pay $4 trillion for a government every year that's been closed for 12 days. And I'll be honest with you, very few people have noticed, Judge. I feel bad for the people not getting their checks. You'll get your money later. But almost nobody's noticed.
Dan Bongino, Chris Hahn, I'm closing the same way I always do with the two of you yapping over me. Thanks so much and Happy New Year, guys. And the new darling of the Democrats has certainly made a big splash in Washington, but is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez making headlines for the right reasons? Candace Owens from Turning Point USA is here to talk about that and more. Don't go away. The youngest U.S. Congresswoman in history already making some waves. She's doing a lot of talking for someone who just got into office. Turning Point USA Communications Director Candace Owens joins me to talk about that and more. Happy New Year. Good evening, Candace.
Happy New Year, Judge.
All right, Candace, I want to talk about Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and I want to start with a look back at something from a couple of months ago, and I think it sets the tone regarding her and her breadth of experience. Take a listen.
What people are starting to see, at least in the occupation of Palestine, is just an increasing crisis of humanitarian condition. And that to me is just where I tend to come from on this issue.
You use the term the occupation of Palestine. What did you mean by that?
I think what I meant is like the settlements that are increasing in some of these areas and places where Palestinians are experiencing difficulty in access to their housing and homes.
Do you think you can expand on that?
Yeah, I mean, I think I'd also I am not the expert on geopolitics on this issue.
Okay, go ahead, Candace.
Look, that particular scene, I have to say, I find it to be quite funny. But I'm kind of in the camp now where I think we actually have to stop mocking her and start to really understand what's happening here. First and foremost, she's constantly presenting herself, even in that interview, as a little girl. She comes across like she's 16 years old. She is not. Because we keep calling her the youngest person in Congress, it allows her to play the part of victim, like she's some girl on the playground who keeps getting bullied. She is not. She's a 30-year-old adult woman who is talking about dangerous ideas. She's talking about socialism. She's talking about ideas that were once pushed by Stalin and Lenin. And we have to start talking about her position, because this is something that is actually extremely alarming in America. She's not being bullied because she's young. She's not being bullied because she's the youngest person in Congress. People are actually holding her to task because she knows absolutely nothing, and she's made it to Capitol Hill.
And, you know, the amazing part of it, Candace, is that she suggests that, you know, she's from the hood when, in truth, she went to one of the most expensive schools in my county, one of the most expensive counties in the country, Westchester County, and I believe Boston University. But I want to move on from that to her saying something about in the 60-minute interview on taxes. Take a listen.
Once you get to like the tippy tops on your $10 millionth dollar, sometimes you see tax rates as high as 60 or 70%. That doesn't mean all $10 million are taxed at an extremely high rate, but it means that as you climb up this ladder, you should be contributing more.
Go ahead, Candace.
Okay, so first and foremost, I'm going to point again to the way that she presents herself, the tippy top. I don't know why she's speaking like that. She's a 30-year-old adult woman, but she does not understand economics whatsoever. And unfortunately, a lot of these interviewers aren't hitting hard back at her and asking her to explain her positions. If she wants to tax 70%, you know, in terms of people's salaries, she should start with her own. She's making $174,000. I suggest that we take 70% of hers.
Well, you know, what's interesting is she suggested that during the shutdown, the partial shutdown, that the Congress people shouldn't take a salary, and of course she's taking hers, but I guess that doesn't matter. It's just hypocrisy.
Just a tippy top, Judge. Just a tippy top.
And I also want you to take a listen to this. I think it's very interesting. Another thing from the 60-minute interview where she compares herself to Abe Franklin and Franklin Delano Roosevelt.
I think that it only has ever been radicals that have changed this country. Abraham Lincoln made the radical decision to sign the Emancipation Proclamation. Franklin Delano Roosevelt made the radical decision to embark on establishing programs like Social Security. That is radical.
Do you call yourself a radical?
Yeah, you know, if that's what radical means, call me a radical.
All right, and I meant Abe Lincoln, of course, and Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Go ahead, Candace. What do you think?
First and foremost, she should know that Abraham Lincoln was a Republican and she's representing the opposite party. I think she knows absolutely nothing about American history, absolutely nothing about world history. Forget history. She doesn't even understand world current affairs. Otherwise, she wouldn't be pushing forth socialism. As we understand, it's completely made Venezuela an absolute mess, and those people are actually fleeing those countries, trying to come into our own. Again, this is a woman that has arrived into the spotlight, and I'm happy that in America you can do that if you work hard. But her policies are alarming, and she's extremely uneducated, and that is why she is constantly under attack by the media.
Well, but maybe not enough. It's just a question of putting her out there all the time. But what do you think Nancy Pelosi is going to do with her? I mean, she said some things that weren't so nice about Pelosi, and we see Rashida Tlaib, the one who called the president an MFer, which just blows my mind. She's now running for cover when the press comes after her. Do you think Ocasio-Cortez is someone who can be reined in by Nancy?
Oh, absolutely. Here's one thing you have to credit the left with. They never go against each other. They're like zombies. They're in lockstep. No matter what the other person does, they never go after each other and attack one another in the media. So they'll come together for the sake of trying to destroy Trump. They will be in lockstep, focused on trying to destroy Trump, trying to go after Republicans, and trying to go after the GOP. I think that's what we're going to see here.
I think it's going to be a long 2 years. Anyway, Candace Owens, great to see you. Thanks for being with us tonight.
Good to see you.
All right. And up next, I take you on my private behind-the-scenes tour of Washington, D.C.'s Law Enforcement Museum, where I got to experience exactly what it takes to be a cop. Do you think I made the cut? Find out after the break. Every single day, members of law enforcement put their lives on the line to safeguard our communities and country. I had the privilege of going to the National Law Enforcement Museum in Washington, D.C., where they honor the sacrifice of our fallen officers, and I was able to learn about the complex nature of law enforcement in a fun and challenging way. Take a look. So here we are at the National Law Enforcement Museum in Washington, D.C. I'm here with the CEO of the museum, Craig Floyd. Craig, we're here in this Hall of Remembrance. What is it that we're looking at here?
Well, this is a wall honoring all of those names that we just added to the memorial this year. 360 officers, federal, state, local, tribal, and territorial, who lost their lives in the line of duty. 129 of those officers died last year. The others died earlier in history, but their stories have been forgotten, and our research efforts uncovered them. They will be forgotten no more.
Let's talk about this chime over here. Tell me what it represents.
Well, this chime rings here in the museum once every 63 hours, which is a symbolic tribute, and it acknowledges the fact that on average, an officer here in the United States dies in the line of duty every 63 hours.
It must be a nightmare when you hear it. I mean, when you're in this room, you realize what it represents, not just names, but actual faces of men and women killed in the line of duty.
Our forensic science lab. So each of the stations in here is a different form of forensic science, and you, the visitor, play the part of the detective. Wow. And so you figure out how to solve crimes using forensic science. These are wanted posters from yesteryear. And over here we have 3 skeletons. This is one of my favorites because ultimately you, the investigator, has to determine what type of weapon was used to kill each of these individuals.
Oh, well, that's obviously
that one's a little easier than the others. So here are your weapons up here.
Trauma. Woo!
So you got to select which weapon made that particular injury. And so you're right. The first one was a bullet.
Bullet, right. And
this one's a little harder.
This is blunt force trauma. Oh, it's the axe. I take it back. I didn't see this. The axe. The body farm. This was used in the Casey Anthony case. Remember the body farm from Tennessee, right? Is it Tennessee? Yeah, Tennessee.
Yep, you called it.
Good stuff. Bones, bugs, brains, and more. Yeah, I'm going to bore you, but I love this stuff. This is a training simulator. I don't know what I'm going to do, but apparently they're going to train me. All right, so what is this in here?
This is an exhibit that affords the average citizen an opportunity to really step into the shoes of law enforcement officers, quite literally.
All right, put your hands down. Drop what you have in your hands. All right, drop that. Drop that. Stay where you are. Put your hands down. Put the gun down. Put the gun down. Put the gun down. A couple times here, I'll be an expert.
That's right. That's right.
All right, so this is the web of law enforcement. What does that mean?
Well, we're trying to show people that the complex nature of criminal justice in the United States, most countries have one national police force. We have 18,000 law enforcement agencies in the United States, all of them working together, multiple agencies working the same crime.
Okay. And then what this wall does is you touch it, it tells you the crime, the agency, and the resolution, and it takes you through the actual investigation. That is fascinating.
It's a great, better understanding of how our system works.
Yep. Right. So if you want to find out about a Virginia hostage situation, when a homicide suspect takes hostages, he's already wanted for murder. You can view the crime line, and then the police agencies involved, and Customs Border Protection, U.S. Marshals. It's amazing. There is a very complex web.
You have 7 agencies. One case, 7 agencies.
Love it. Yeah. That's when law enforcement is at its best, when they work together.
Absolutely. They do a great job.
Yep. If you want to know what it's like to be a member in law enforcement and what it takes to solve crimes, to investigate crimes, and what it's like to be on the front lines every day, visit this museum. It's got everything you could possibly be interested in, from guns to forensics to identification to history of the men and women who fight so hard to protect us. We'll be right back. Finally tonight, a farewell to a hero. Thousands of mourners turned out today in Northern California to say goodbye to police officer Ronald Singh. The hardworking man of the law was shot to death on the day after Christmas by an illegal. Before today's funeral, Officer Singh's flag-draped casket was honored by passers-by and residents in the town of Newman, California, which Officer Singh, an immigrant himself, served so honorably. We here at Justice send our thoughts and our prayers and our gratitude to Officer Singh's wife and his 5-month-old son. May he rest in peace. Thanks for watching tonight. I'm Jeanine Pirro, advocating for truth, justice, and the American way. The Greg Gutfeld Show is coming up, and I'll see you next Saturday night. Thanks.